Commander Vextor thought conquering Earth would be easy, right up until his elite soldiers collapsed under our gravity before they fired a single shot. Commander Vex Tower of the Kroneth Dominion stood before the panoramic viewing screen of his flagship, the Relentless Conquest, and allowed himself a smirk that would have looked absolutely ridiculous to any human observer. Not that he cared what humans thought. In approximately 6 rotations, there would not be any humans left to have opinions about anything. Status report, he barked, his 3 primary arms clasped behind his dorsal ridge in what he considered a pose of supreme military authority. Sir, we are approaching the 3rd planet from the central star, replied Lieutenant Kexnor, who was desperately trying to match his commander's confidence despite never having actually seen combat. The natives call it Earth, which is somehow both boring and pretentious at the same time. Vextalver's smirk widened. Yes, Earth, the primitive little mud ball inhabited by soft pink bipedal creatures who had barely managed to escape their own gravity well, let alone master faster-than-light travel. The intelligence reports had been clear. These humans possessed nuclear weapons, chemical propulsion systems, and an inexplicable obsession with something called social media. Terrifying stuff, truly. Remind me, Vextalvor said, turning to his second-in-command, Captain Threlzik. How many worlds has the Kroneth Dominion successfully conquered in the past cycle? 17, sir. Threlzik replied with evident pride, her bioluminescent patches glowing a satisfied purple. Not a single casualty on our side, well, unless you count Private Mixtel. But he walked into a reactor coil because he was distracted by his communication device, so that hardly counts as combat-related. The bridge crew chittered with amusement, which sounded like a dozen malfunctioning hard drives all playing different error messages simultaneously. Vextalvor appreciated good morale. It made conquering significantly easier when your troops believed they were invincible, and why should they not? The Kroneth had swept through the Outer Rim territories like a particularly aggressive dust storm. The methane breathers of Gik 7 had surrendered after one look at the Kroneth battle formation. The crystalline hive minds of Praxis 9 had actually thanked them for the invasion, claiming it broke up the monotony of their eternal existence. The floating gas sacks of Nebulos 12 had not even realized they were being conquered until the paperwork was filed with the Galactic Council. Compared to those campaigns, Earth would be laughably simple. Pull up the reconnaissance data again, Vextal ordered, settling into his command throne, which was specifically designed to accommodate his species' unique skeletal structure and excessive number of joints. I want to review what passes for military might on this pathetic rock. The main screen flickered to life, displaying footage captured by their long-range survey drones over the past several rotations. Vextel watched as human military forces paraded around in their quaint little vehicles, firing their adorable chemical-based weapons at targets. They moved so slowly, their reaction times were atrocious, and their technology, by the standards, their technology looked like it had been assembled by particularly industrious children playing with spare parts. Look at them, Vextelvorn said, gesturing at the screen with 2 of his arms while using the 3rd to scratch an itch on his cranial ridge. They still use wheeled transport, wheels, as if friction is something to be embraced rather than overcome. The preliminary scans indicate they have not even achieved basic gravitational manipulation, Kixnor added, consulting his data tablet. Their ships still rely on controlled explosions for propulsion. It is almost endearing in a pathetic sort of way. How long until we achieve orbit? Vextelor asked. Approximately 2 time units, sir. We are maintaining stealth protocols, though honestly I doubt their detection systems could spot us even if we broadcast our arrival on all frequencies while playing festive music. Vextelvor nodded approvingly. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. The Kroneth fleet, consisting of 47 battle cruisers, 200 support vessels and enough ground forces to overwhelm a planet 3 times Earth's size, would slip into orbit undetected. They would establish orbital superiority, eliminate any satellites or space stations, and then commence the landing operations. By this time tomorrow, Earth's governments would be falling over themselves to surrender.
It was almost too easy. Almost boring. Really.
Sir, called out Ensign Plixa from the sensor station, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty that Vextel found mildly annoying. I am detecting some unusual readings as we approach optimal orbital insertion distance. Define unusual, Vextelvorn said, not particularly concerned. Every planet had its quirks, magnetic fields, radiation belts, the occasional sentient energy being living in the upper atmosphere, nothing the Kroneth could not handle. The gravitational readings are higher than expected, sir. Significantly higher. Higher than what? Higher than any habitable planet we have encountered in the past 50 cycles of conquest, sir. Vextel waved a dismissive hand. Recalibrate your instruments, Ensign. The preliminary surveys indicated standard parameters for a planet of Earth's mass and density. You are likely experiencing sensor drift from the jump through hyperspace. Sir, I have recalibrated 3 times. The readings are consistent. Earth's surface gravity measures approximately 9.8 of their meters per second squared, which translates to roughly 2.1 times the standard Croneth baseline. A brief moment of silence filled the bridge. 2.1 times, Vextel repeated slowly. Yes, sir. Vextel felt a tiny, almost imperceptible flutter of concern in his primary stomach. 2.1 times standard was, well, it was manageable, probably. The Croneth had invaded worlds with slightly elevated gravity before. It just meant the troops would tire more quickly, and the equipment would need minor adjustments, nothing that would compromise the invasion. Interesting, he said, maintaining his authoritative tone. So the humans evolved on a high-gravity world. That explains why they are so short and dense. No matter. Adjust the landing protocols accordingly, and distribute gravity compensation medication to all ground forces. This changes nothing. Yes, sir. The bridge crew responded in unison. Vextel returned his attention to the viewing screen, watching as Earth grew larger in their approach. The planet looked depictively pleasant from orbit, with its blue oceans and swirling white clouds and annoyingly vibrant green continents. Somewhere down there, humans were going about their mundane little lives, completely unaware that their world was about to be conquered by a superior species. The relentless conquest shuddered slightly as it began its orbital insertion burn, and Vextel felt the familiar thrill of impending victory wash over him. His 18th conquest. Another world for the Croneth Dominion. Another line on his already impressive service record. What could possibly go wrong? The first wave of Croneth drop pods screamed through Earth's atmosphere like meteors with a really poor understanding of subtlety. Vextel watched from the orbital command center, his 3 arms crossed in what he hoped looked like confident authority rather than the nervous tension that was currently making his joints ache. Drop pods approaching landing zone Alpha, reported Kixenor, monitoring the descent trajectories. Estimated ground contact in 45 seconds. All systems nominal. Excellent, Vextelvorn said, though something in his secondary stomach was doing uncomfortable flips. He had distributed the gravity compensation medication to all troops, doubled the doses just to be safe, and reinforced the drop pod shock absorbers. Everything would be fine. Absolutely fine. The first pod hit the ground in what appeared to be a rural area designated as Kansas, which apparently meant absolutely nothing interesting ever happened there. The locals were about to get a very rude awakening. The pod's doors blasted open with practiced precision, smoke billowing out dramatically, and squad leader Brixton took his first confident step onto Earth's surface. Or rather, he attempted to take a confident step. What actually happened was that Brixton's leg buckled the moment his boot touched the ground, and he face-planted into the dirt with a wet thud that was audible even over the communication channel. His armor, which weighed practically nothing on the Croneth homeworld, suddenly felt like it was forged from neutron star material. Brixton, report, Vextel barked into the command channel. The response came as a strangled wheeze. Sir, I cannot, I am unable, everything is so heavy, oh standards help me, I think my spine is compressing. What? I cannot stand, sir. The gravity, it is crushing me. My bones are screaming. Behind Brixton, the rest of his squad attempted to exit the pod. Trooper Kexerl made it 2 steps before collapsing sideways. Private Lixnara actually managed 3 steps, which would have been impressive except she was crawling on all 6 of her limbs and whimpering about her ancestor. Sergeant Dromix tried to activate his jump pack to compensate, which resulted in him launching approximately 4 inches off the ground before slamming back down and vomiting spectacularly inside his helmet. This is not happening, Vextelvorn muttered, watching the tactical display as squad after squad reported similar catastrophic failures. This cannot be happening. Sir, Squad 7 reports their combat walker has collapsed under its own weight. Threlzik reported, her bioluminescent patches flickering a distressed orange. Squad 12 says their weapons are too heavy to lift. Squad 3 is requesting immediate medical evacuation because Private Texner's exoskeleton has fused to his body from the pressure. On the ground, The situation was deteriorating from bad to absolutely mortifying at a speed that would have impressed a relativistic physicist. The Kronith invasion force, pride of the Dominion military, elite warriors who had conquered 17 worlds, were lying on the ground like overturned beetles, flailing their multiple limbs uselessly at the sky. A human farmer named Robert Hutchins, who had been enjoying his morning coffee on his porch, watched the spectacle with the kind of confused fascination normally reserved for particularly stupid viral videos. He took another sip of his coffee. One of the alien invaders was trying to lift what appeared to be a weapon the size of a toaster, succeeding only in making sad wheezing noises. "Honey," Robert called into his house. "You are gonna want to see this." His wife, Patricia, emerged onto the porch, still in her bathrobe. She looked at the scene of alien soldiers sprawled across their wheat field like some kind of extraterrestrial yard sale. "Are those supposed to be aliens?" "I think they are trying to invade us," Robert said thoughtfully. "They are doing a terrible job. Real terrible." One of the Kronath soldiers managed to prop himself up on his arms, looking directly at the human couple. He opened his mouth to deliver what was probably supposed to be a terrifying declaration of conquest. What came out was, "Please help, everything hurts. Why is your planet so angry?" Patricia took out her phone and started recording. Back in orbit, Vextov was experiencing what could only be described as a full-blown panic attack, though he would later describe it in his official report as tactical recalibration under unexpected environmental parameters. The view screens showed absolute chaos, hundreds of his finest soldiers, reduced to helpless larvae by a force they could not even see. "The gravity compensation medication is not working," Kieksnar shouted over the cacophony of screaming troops. "It was designed for mild variations, not this. Whatever this nightmare is. Deploy the mechanized units," Vextov ordered desperately. "Surely the automated systems can handle the gravity." That turned out to be an optimistic assumption. The first Kronath battle mech stepped out of its deployment shuttle, took one thunderous step forward, and then its leg actuators screamed in protest before snapping completely. The mech toppled forward in slow motion, creating a crater when it hit the ground that would later become a minor tourist attraction. "Sir, the mechs are overloading. The servos cannot handle the weight distribution." "What about the hover tanks?" "They are hovering approximately 2 inches off the ground and cannot gain altitude. One of them crashed into a human structure called a Dairy Queen. The humans appear more upset about the ice cream than the invasion." Vextel watched in horror as his meticulously planned invasion crumbled like a cookie in the hands of a toddler. Across 17 different landing zones, the story was the same. Kronath soldiers lying helpless on the ground, equipment failing, weapons too heavy to aim, armor that had become prison rather than protection. In downtown Tokyo, a group of office workers, on their lunch break, gathered around a struggling Kronath warrior, who had managed to prop himself against a vending machine. One of them offered him a bottle of water. The warrior tried to take it, but his arm collapsed under the combined weight of his armor and the bottle. "I think he needs help," one worker said in Japanese. "Should we call someone?" another asked. "Who do you call for a failed alien invasion?" A third worker wondered. "Is that police or fire department?" In London, a Kronath soldier's desperate crawl toward Strategic Objective Beta, which turned out to be a fish and chip shop, was live streaming on 6 different social media platforms. The comment section was ruthless. "Mate, do you even lift?" One comment read. "Skip leg day much?" posted another. "This is the worst invasion since my mother-in-law visited," contributed a third. Vextel slumped in his command throne, watching 17 simultaneous feeds of humiliation. His troops were begging for extraction. Some were actually crying. One squad had given up entirely and was just lying on the ground making snow angels in the dirt, except there was no snow, just despair. "Recall all ground forces," he said quietly. "Sir?" Thrilzik asked. "I said recall them. Get them off that cursed planet before they suffocate under their own body weight. This is a full retreat." As the extraction shuttles descended to rescue his defeated army, Vextar could not help but wonder how the humans had developed on a planet that was apparently trying to crush everything on its surface into a fine paste. What kind of species evolved under these conditions? What kind of monsters casually walked around in 2.1 times standard gravity like it was nothing? The humans, apparently. The soft, primitive, technologically inferior humans, who were currently taking selfies with his immobilized invasion force. Vextelvorn had not slept in 3 rotation cycles. He stood in the fleet's primary research laboratory, watching his best scientists scramble to solve a problem that should not have existed in the first place. Around him, Cronath engineers pored over data streams, ran simulations and argued in the high-pitched chittering that indicated extreme stress. "Explain to me again," Vextelfor said, his voice dangerously calm, "how we failed to account for this." Chief Science Officer Namtara, who had 6 advanced degrees and exactly 0 combat experience, fidgeted with her data tablet. "Commander, the preliminary surveys were conducted via long-range scan. We measured mass. We measured density. We calculated the expected gravitational force. Somehow, somewhere, our equations were catastrophically wrong." "Catastrophically wrong," Vextower repeated. "That is the technical assessment. Sir, Earth's gravity is not just higher than expected. It is higher than anything we have encountered on a habitable world. Most species evolve on planets with 0.7 to 1.2 times standard gravity. These humans exist at 2.1 times standard. They are biological impossibilities who somehow do not realize they are biological impossibilities." Vextel thought back to the conquest of Glex 4 just 2 cycles ago. Beautiful Glex 4 with its 0.6 standard gravity, where his troops had bounded across the landscape like graceful dancers. The native Glexuns had fought back with their plasma spears and shield walls, but Cronath agility had won the day. His soldiers had leaped over fortifications, dodged energy jets with ease, performed aerial maneuvers that would have made acrobats weep with envy. On Earth, his soldiers could not even stand up without their knees inverting. "What about Praxis 9? Lieutenant Kixnor offered weakly. "That was 0.9 standard gravity and the crystalline inhabitants put up quite a fight." "They put up a fight for approximately 11 minutes, Vextelforn corrected, before they realized we could simply step on them. Their greatest weapon was philosophical debate, which is not particularly effective against orbital bombardment." The memory stung now. Every easy victory, every casual conquest, every world where the chronic military superiority had been unquestionable. The floating cities of Ariane 3, where 0.4 gravity made everything feel like a pleasant dream. The oceanic platforms of Aquadis 7, where 0.8 gravity was considered oppressively high by the locals. Not one of those worlds had prepared them for Earth. "Show me what you have developed," Vextelv ordered. Mintara gestured to a neighboring platform where a prototype gravity compensation suit hung on a support frame. It looked like someone had taken a standard Cronath combat suit and added approximately 17 different layers of mechanical assistance, power cores and stabilization fields. "We have created an enhanced exoskeleton with triple redundant gravitational dampeners," Namtara explained. "It has reinforced joint actuators, spinal support columns and a distributed power system that should theoretically allow our troops to function normally under Earth's conditions." "Theoretically," Vextelfor said. "Well, yes. We have not exactly had time for extensive field testing. Then we test it now. Prepare a second landing force. Smaller this time. 1 squad. Full equipment. These new suits. We hit a remote location. We establish that we can actually walk around without collapsing. And then we proceed with the invasion." 12 hours later, a single Cronath drop pod descended toward a small town in rural Montana called Whitefish, which had a population of approximately 7,000 humans who were about to have a very strange morning. Squad leader Crix, then, wearing one of the new gravity compensation suits, felt cautiously optimistic as the pod doors opened. The suit hummed with power. The gravitational dampeners thrummed against his exoskeleton. His vitals were stable. His confidence was returning. He stepped onto Earth's surface, and immediately the suit's alarm system started screaming. But he remained standing. Sure, every joint felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. And yes, his vision was graying at the edges from the pressure. And okay, fine. He was pretty certain his internal organs were rearranging themselves. But he was standing. This was progress. "Squad, advance," he commanded, his voice only slightly strangled. His 5 troops emerged from the pod, all wearing the new suits, all managing to remain vertical. They looked like a group of arthritic elderly Cronath trying to walk through setting concrete. But they were mobile. That counted for something. "We are going to secure that structure," Krexven said, pointing at a nearby elementary school where human children were currently at recess. "We take hostages. We demonstrate our capability. And we send a message that the Cronath cannot be defeated by mere gravity." It was a solid plan. It would have worked beautifully on literally any other planet. They made it approximately 50 meters before the suit started failing. Trooper Vixnall went first. His left knee actuator sparked, seized and then exploded in a shower of sparks. He toppled sideways like a felled tree. Private Maxtira's gravitational dampener overloaded next, creating a localized gravity anomaly that caused her to suddenly weigh approximately 3 times more than she already did. She hit the ground so hard she created a small impact crater. Krexvelvorn pushed forward, determined to reach the school, to salvage something from this disaster. His HUD was flashing warnings in 17 different colors. His power core was at 63% and dropping fast. His spinal support column was making alarming grinding noises. And then he saw her. A human child. Female. Approximately 8 years old by his estimation, standing on the playground watching him. She had pigtails. She was holding a jump rope. She looked utterly unimpressed. Krexvin raised his weapon, which took both arms and every ounce of strength his failing suit could provide. Surrender, human larva. You are now a prisoner of the Kronath Dominion. The child tilted her head, evaluated the struggling alien in the wheezing mechanical suit, and then did something that would haunt Krexven's nightmares for the rest of his life. She started doing jumping jacks. Up, down, her small human body moving effortlessly in the gravity that was literally crushing him to death. She smiled. She was not even breathing hard. I can do 50 of these, she announced cheerfully. Can you? Krex then tried to take another step forward. His suit's power core hit critical levels. Warning klaxons blared in his audio receptors. Behind him his squad was a scattered mess of mechanical failure and biological defeat. I can also do cartwheels, the child added, and proceeded to demonstrate spinning gracefully through the air while Krixvaden could barely lift his weapon. A teacher emerged from the school, saw the scene, and calmly pulled out her phone. Principal Martinez? Yeah, we have some more of those aliens in the playground. No, they are not doing well. One of them is being outperformed by Emma in the physical fitness challenge. Should I call animal control or what? Krexvad's suit finally gave up entirely. Every system shut down simultaneously. He collapsed forward, face-planting into the grass, while a group of human children gathered around to observe the strange alien who apparently could not do jumping jacks. Mr. Alien looks tired, one child observed. My grandma moves faster than him, another added. I think he is broken, Emma said, poking him with her jump rope. From orbit, Vextel watched the tactical feed and felt something inside him break that had nothing to do with gravity. Recall the squad, he whispered. Recall everyone. Get them out of there before the human larvae start offering them fitness advice. The second invasion attempt had lasted exactly 14 minutes. A new record, and not the good kind. The Emergency Command Council convened in the fleet's war room, and the atmosphere was so tense you could have cut it with a plasma cutter, assuming you had the strength to lift one in Earth's horrifying gravity. Vextar sat at the head of the table surrounded by his senior officers, all of whom looked like they had aged several cycles in the past rotation. Options, Vextav said flatly. I want options that do not involve my troops being humiliated by human children. Captain Threlzik consulted her notes, her bioluminescent patches flickering a sickly yellow. We could attempt orbital bombardment, sir. Stay in space. Eliminate the surface threats from a safe distance. The Galactic Council strictly forbids orbital bombardment of inhabited worlds, Chief Tactical Officer Zonpak reminded her. We would be sanctioned, possibly expelled from the Dominion, definitely court-martialed. We are already going to be court-martialed for this disaster, Threlzik muttered. Science Officer Nimtara raised a tentacle hesitantly. Commander, I have been analyzing the data from both landing attempts and I believe I have identified the core issue. Do tell, Vextelvorn said, his tone suggesting that her explanation had better be spectacular. Sir, humans are not normal. I know that sounds obvious given our current situation, but I mean it in a very specific biological sense. They evolved under constant crushing pressure. Every system in their bodies is overbuilt for survival in extreme conditions. Their bones are reinforced with calcium deposits that would be unnecessary on any reasonable planet. Their muscles generate force outputs that seem excessive until you realize they need that just to walk around. Their cardiovascular system operates at pressures that would rupture our circulatory organs. So you are saying humans are basically walking tanks, Kixner said. I am saying humans are terrifying and we should leave immediately, Namtara corrected. Sir, I pulled data from their information networks. Do you know what humans do for recreation? They deliberately put additional weight on their bodies and lift it repeatedly. They call it exercise. They pay money to make themselves work harder against their own planet's gravity. Some of them even enjoy it. A horrified silence filled the room. That is insane, someone whispered. That is adaptation to a death world, Namtara said. Earth is classified as a garden planet in our databases, but that is catastrophically inaccurate. Earth is a high-gravity nightmare that happens to have breathable air and liquid water. The fact that it produced a spacefaring civilization is frankly absurd. Vextower drummed his fingers on the table, a nervous habit he had developed approximately 2 days ago. We have 47 warships in orbit. Surely there is some way to leverage our technological superiority. With respect, sir, Zinpak said carefully. Our technological superiority means nothing if we cannot actually stand on the planet's surface. It is like having the finest weapons in the galaxy and no hands to hold them with. One more attempt, Vextower said suddenly. We make one more landing fully prepared this time. We use remote drones for the heavy equipment. We select our strongest troops and pump them full of every enhancement drug in the medical bay. We target a completely isolated location with no witnesses. If we can establish even one successful foothold, we can build from there. The council exchanged doubtful looks, but no one wanted to be the officer who suggested retreat. Not yet. Not when they still had some shred of military pride left to salvage. 16 hours later, the third and final landing attempt began on a remote island in the South Pacific, a place called Fiji, which seemed far enough from major population centers that maybe, just maybe, they could achieve something without immediate humiliation. Assault Commander Grixthor led this mission personally. He had been injected with enough stimulants to kill a smaller Cronath, wore a suit that was more mechanical than armor, and carried weapons that had been stripped down to minimal weight. His squad consisted of the 12 strongest, toughest, most physically capable warriors in the entire fleet. They were going to succeed if it killed them, which was looking increasingly likely. The drop pod landed on a pristine beach at sunset. Grixthor emerged, and for the first 15 seconds he allowed himself to feel hope. He was standing. He was moving. The pain was extraordinary. His organs felt like they were trying to exit his body through unconventional routes. But he was functional. Secure the perimeter, he ordered. Establish the forward base. Deploy the sensor equipment. His squad moved like they were wading through syrup. But they moved. They began setting up the prefabricated base structures. Things were happening. Progress was being made. And then Private Dex Lara made a critical error. She stepped on a coconut. Her foot slipped. Her arms windmilled. Her center of gravity shifted. In the 0.9 standard gravity of her home world, she would have recovered easily. In Earth's brutal 2.1 times standard, she went down like a sack of neutronium, crashed into Trooper Kexven, who stumbled into Sergeant Blagzar, who collided with the sensor equipment, which toppled onto the base structure, which collapsed on top of Lieutenant Fexmo. It was like watching dominoes, if the dominoes were highly trained alien soldiers and also completely incompetent. Within 90 seconds the entire squad was a tangled heap of bodies, equipment and shattered dreams. Help, Grixthor wheezed from the bottom of the pile. Cannot breathe. Thorax is compressed. Requesting immediate extraction, please. I am begging. Sir, we just landed. Kixner's voice crackled over the comm. It has been less than 2 minutes. Extract us, now, or I will die here and haunt you from the afterlife. Grixthor screamed, his dignity having evacuated the premises approximately 30 seconds ago. A human tourist couple, having come to Fiji for their honeymoon, wandered onto the beach holding tropical drinks with little umbrellas. They stopped. They stared at the pile of struggling aliens surrounded by sparking equipment. Are those the invasion guys from the news? The wife asked. I think so, the husband replied. They are doing worse than I expected. Should we help them? Honey, we are on our honeymoon. Let the locals deal with the incompetent aliens. They took a selfie with the struggling Cronath in the background and posted it to social media with the caption, even the aliens can't resist Fiji's relaxing atmosphere. #vacation goals. Back in orbit, Vexto watched the mission timer. 2 minutes, 47 seconds. That was how long his final invasion attempt had lasted. Less time than it took to brew a decent cup of stimulant beverage. Pull them out, he said quietly. Sir, all of them. Every squad, every soldier, every piece of equipment that has not already been destroyed or turned into a viral video. We are done. Earth wins. I do not know how they won, considering most of them do not even know we were here, but they won. The extraction shuttles descended once more, retrieving Vextower's defeated, exhausted, gravity-crushed troops. Many of them were crying. Several were praying to various deities. One was composing a resignation letter to submit the moment they returned to Kronoth space. On Earth, life continued exactly as it had before. A few viral videos circulated of strange aliens who apparently could not handle normal gravity. Some governments issued statements about investigating the unusual visitors. Most humans went about their day completely unaware that they had just won a war without firing a single shot, throwing a single punch, or even really noticing there had been a war to win. Vextelfer slumped in his command chair and contemplated the ruins of his military career. 18 conquests. He had dreamed of. A legendary record. Promotion to Supreme Commander. Glory eternal. Instead, he had 17 successful invasions and one planet that had defeated him through the simple act of existing. Vextelfer sat alone in his quarters, staring at the blank holographic display where his official report to Galactic Command should be taking shape. Around him, the relentless conquest hummed with the sounds of a fleet in retreat, which sounded suspiciously similar to a fleet in utter disgrace. He began typing, then deleted it, typed again, deleted again. How exactly did one explain this level of catastrophic failure to the Supreme Galactic Council without sounding completely deranged? Finally, he settled on honesty, that last refuge of the utterly defeated. Official after-action report. Operation Earth Conquest. Commander Vextelfer reporting. Executive summary. We lost. We lost to gravity. I am aware of how this sounds. I am aware that I will likely be demoted to sanitation officer on a waste processing station. I am submitting this report anyway, because someone needs to warn the galaxy about what we encountered. He paused, his 3 hands trembling slightly as he continued. Earth is not a garden world. Earth is not a standard habitable planet. Earth is a high-gravity nightmare masquerading as a peaceful blue sphere. The dominant species, designated as humans, are biological impossibilities who have somehow survived and thrived under conditions that reduce Kronoth warriors to whimpering larvae. They are strong, they are durable, they are completely unaware of how terrifying they actually are. In the medical bay, Chief Medical Officer Texral was treating the 47th case of gravity-induced spinal compression. The bay was packed with injured soldiers, all suffering from conditions that would have been hilarious if they were not so painful. Crushed vertebrae, inverted joints, muscle tears, something the medical staff had started calling Earthstrike syndrome, characterized by severe depression and an irrational fear of children with jump ropes. How long until we reach minimum safe distance from Earth? One soldier asked, his voice muffled by the compression bandages wrapped around his thorax. Approximately 6 more hours, Tixerla replied, administering pain medication. Try to rest. Think about low-gravity worlds. Pleasant 0.6 standard gravity worlds where your bones do not try to escape through your feet. I had dreams about Earth, the soldier whispered. Nightmares where I was walking through their cities and human infants were running circles around me while I could not even lift my arms. One of them was eating something called a cheeseburger while doing backflips. I will never forget it. Texerl patted his shoulder sympathetically. She had heard variations of this story from dozens of troops. Earth had broken something fundamental in these warriors. Some core belief that they were the apex predators of the galaxy. Turns out they were apex predators only on planets where standing upright was not an extreme cert. Vextelvorn continued his report, the words flowing more easily now that he had accepted his fate. I am recommending, in the strongest possible terms, that Earth be reclassified immediately. Suggested designation: Class 12 Death World, Gravitational Hazard, Extreme Threat to Standard Biology. Furthermore, I recommend a galaxy-wide exclusion zone. No Kronoth forces should approach Earth's system under any circumstances. Let the humans exist in their crushing gravity prison. Let them continue their bizarre practices of deliberately making their already difficult lives harder through exercise and sports. They have defeated us without even knowing we were there. On the bridge, Lieutenant Kixnor was processing the final casualty reports and trying not to weep openly. 0 fatalities, thankfully. The Kronoth might be humiliated, but at least they were alive. However, the injuries were extensive. 43% of the ground forces had stress fractures, 67% had soft tissue damage, 100% had psychological trauma that would require cycles of therapy. Sir, Kixnor said quietly to Threlzik, the Cultural Research Division has compiled data on human awareness of our invasion attempt. Let me guess, Threlzik said tiredly. They think we were a weather balloon or something equally ridiculous. Actually, sir, most humans believe we were either a poorly organized publicity stunt, a viral marketing campaign for a movie, Or possibly a very elaborate prank. There are approximately 17,000 videos of our troops circulating on their social networks. The most popular one is titled, "Aliens Fail at Basic Motor Functions for 10 Minutes Straight." It has 60 million views. 60 million. Yes, sir. The comment section is particularly cruel. There are many references to something called Leg Day, which apparently is a human exercise ritual we should have practiced. Threlzik buried her face in her hands. Just get us out of this cursed system. Vextelvar added his final paragraphs to the report, each word a small surrender of his military pride. In conclusion, Earth represents a fundamental paradigm shift in our understanding of habitable worlds and the species that evolve on them. Humans are not primitive. They are not weak. They are survivors of a planet that constantly tries to crush them, and they have adapted so thoroughly that they consider their environment normal. They look at our inability to function in their gravity and find it amusing rather than threatening. We came to conquer. We left as entertainment. The Cronath Dominion has been bested by a species that does not even realize we were trying. I accept full responsibility for this failure and await judgment. May the standards have mercy on us all, because Earth certainly will not. He transmitted the report, leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Somewhere on his home world, military historians were going to have a field day with this disaster. His name would become a cautionary tale. Children would learn about the commander who lost to gravity itself. The relentless conquest and its battered fleet jumped to hyperspace, limping away from Earth like wounded animals fleeing a predator they never saw coming. Behind them, the blue planet continued its rotation, utterly indifferent to the drama that had unfolded in its gravity well. On Earth, in 17 different locations, cleanup crews were collecting the abandoned Cronath equipment. Most of it would end up in government research facilities. Some would be sold on the black market. One drop pod would eventually become a tourist attraction in Kansas, complete with a gift shop that sold t-shirts reading, "I survived the great alien invasion of 2025, and all I got was this lousy shirt and some confused memories." Emma, the 8-year-old girl from Montana who had performed jumping jacks in front of a fully armed alien warrior, returned to school on Monday and told her classmates about the weird space people who could not do gym class. Her teacher marked her creative writing assignment as showing excellent imagination but perhaps a bit too much time watching science fiction movies. The Galactic Council received Vextar's report 3 weeks later. After an emergency session lasting 6 hours, they issued a unanimous decree. Earth was reclassified as a Class 12 death world. A permanent warning beacon was placed at the edge of the solar system. The message was simple. Translated into 473 galactic languages. Warning. High-gravity world. Inhabited by physically superior species. Approach at own risk. Seriously. Do not attempt invasion unless you enjoy humiliation. Vextel was indeed demoted, though mercifully not to sanitation duty. Instead, he became an instructor at the Cronath Military Academy, where he taught a new required course, environmental assessment and the importance of accurate planetary surveys. His first lecture always began the same way. "Class, let me tell you about the time I tried to invade a planet and got defeated by physics. And on Earth, humanity continued doing what it had always done. Walking upright and crushing gravity, lifting heavy objects for fun, raising children who could outmaneuver alien warriors, building civilizations on a planet that was, by galactic standards, actively hostile to life. They did all of this without even knowing they were